And when we started Blank, initially it was also a bit of just to make as a statement, a gallery that focuses on abstraction concept, which was quite unusual and still is quite unusual for an African gallery.
I was about to say, how often do you have to replenish? I mean,
The more the better. If you're selling, then you got to rehang, and
rehang. Okay, so Basel, firstly, how do you decide, Jonathan, who you take to Basel?
Jonathan Garnham started off as an artist and then created an amazing project space called Blank. And I sat down with him ahead of his Art Basel show, which always is a hit.
I remember one of the first times I spoke to you was at Joburg Art Fair and then Cape Town Art Fair. You've got a wonderful, dry, cynical sense of humor, which I really enjoyed because I think, again, the art space can be quite intimidating. And I think, even when I walk into a space, I walk into this space, the first time I walked in, I did not know who Asimahla was. And I remember walking in Kimang. I also didn't know who Kimang was. And it's amazing. You found such incredible young artists, Ihshan Adams as well, and grown them because you do have a special skill set. And I know you're not going to say that. You're so careful to not give yourself kudos, but I'm allowed.
I think having trained because ultimately that's what you do at an art school, is having trained as an artist and being an artist, you do cultivate perhaps an eye, and certainly an understanding. And then of course it's also personal taste. I studied in Germany. Actually, my professors, I had 3 professors that were both Japanese, and that's, I think studying in Berlin, Japanese professors, and then if I just say that and you look at our program, I think it's already sort of you can start imagining. So I've got a personal preference more for abstraction, for example. Having been a sculptor, that I'm very interested in material and process, and when we started Blank, initially it was also a bit of just to make as a statement, a gallery that focuses on abstraction concept, which was quite unusual and still is quite unusual for an African gallery. And I mean, as we've grown, that's no longer the case. We work with any artistic position if we think it's good. When you say I've grown, we grew together. I've had the great fortune of growing together with most of the artists. We still do have quite a small program. I think there's 14 artists in our program.
14 artists in total. Yeah. I mean, another artist that I'm absolutely, you speak about abstraction and so, but Sabelo Mlangeni.
Yeah.
I remember seeing his work at the Venice Biennale. It was amazing also last year. Just to be in these spaces and then see something that you recognize as having a South African connection is very important, because it makes one feel that perhaps you do, in a certain way, belong in this world. And that's another world I want to come to now, is Art Basel. The first time I went to Art Basel, I think it was I think I was in Art Basel. I was there. This is my 4th time this year. But I think you were at Lister before, and then you were in the main section of Art Basel. Tell me about your journey into arguably the biggest art fair in the world.
I think it starts off right from the early days of Blank projects. And when we did transform into a gallery, I recognized, but I knew that basically our focus should be, if we're going to sell art on where the market is, which is unfortunately not so much in South Africa.
Yes.
It's in Europe, America, Asia. So I was quite focused on doing international fairs, even when we were, a very young gallery. And I knew that Lister was the fair for a young gallery to participate in, if you could get in. Lister has hundreds of applications and only so many people get in every year. But it is the strongest fair for young art in the world, I'd say. And once you get into Lister, it's also, it's very difficult to get in. And once you do get in, then it also paves the way for starting to get into other art fairs as well. Anyway, we started doing Basel, Lister in about 2014, if I'm not mistaken. And it was wonderful. We were in the right art fair for the size of the gallery. We did Lister for several years, and for the first perhaps 4 years, I was quite happy at Lister and doing it. And then I started applying to Art Basel. They have different sections at Art Basel. You have the Young Gallery section, for example. So I've applied to that, and kept on getting rejected.
But I do love your persistence, and you do need a good sense of humor to go for that.
Then I started getting pissed off, and I actually wrote a letter to Art Basel laying down some of the facts, statistics
love to see that
about how many African galleries have do or have passed. But I went back 20 years or something, and I just gave them some facts. And what was also happening is that some of our artists were being taken and shown by international galleries at Basel. So we're doing all the work of growing with artists, all of that, and then they get noticed. And then, so you've got American galleries showing African artists, but an African gallery is not allowed can't get into the fair. So I wrote this letter. I was a bit nervous about writing it, but by then I think I'd also felt confident enough to actually say what I thought. It was, come on, guys. It's there's also been this wave of interest in contemporary art from the continent in the last decade. And you still had like 2 galleries from the whole continent on the fair. And actually, I was also quite fortunate in that someone wanted to interview me in there, and I had like this one full page thing in the Neue Zürcher Zeitung, which is a very important newspaper, talking about this very thing. So it certainly made a point. And basically, we did then get onto Basel. So sometimes it pays to sort of
say what you
push. And
I do want to at some point in time see that letter. I would love to.
It's a short letter. I mean, they don't give you an answer either. They just acknowledge receipt of it, So, but it's maybe I don't know. But I could show it to you. I've got to just find it.
And there you are at Art Basel.
Yeah, so then we in Basel, which has been the aim. It's like the best art fair in the world. It's where any gallery would want to be, and it's. It's challenging. It's Switzerland's very expensive. Shipping. If you're a South African gallery or any gallery from the global south, you're doing any art fair, you first of all air freighting.
Absolutely.
These huge crates across the world to get there. So it's a very expensive fair. But
I actually to that point. What I loved is when I saw. I think we spoke about this, but I just remember you also said to me, and Catherine Schaefer, another person who was very helpful for me when I went to my first Art Basel, she said, just be careful if you are there on the first choice days, which by fluke, I happen to be there, or I have been there on the first couple of days, but she's like, just remember that the galleries are there to sell. It's not a time to say, hi, how's it? And be all excited to see friends. They are there to sell.
Yeah, especially on that first day or the first 2 days, which is the preview days. After that, it becomes, this is the other thing about art fairs, they're not just about, like any marketplace, if you're selling potatoes, at the market, what happens are you're trying to sell your wares, but you also are chatting with the people next door to you across the way about, I don't know, the affairs of the day. So that it's quite community building in a way, these art fairs. And you can also learn quite a lot just by listening to other or talking with other gallerists and that. We're quite limited here in South Africa. We've only got a very small group of galleries who are relatively inexperienced compared to a lot of our international counterparts. So you can learn in doing these fairs.
Okay, so Basel. Firstly, how do you decide, Jonathan, who you take to Basel? Because it's you say you've got a small
booth. Yeah, we do have a small booth there.
And you represent 14 artists, 15
Yeah.
artists.
And then 14.
Exclusively representing?
Most of them, I mean, Ikshan works with a couple of our artists, work with other galleries, and we encourage that as well. You want, for the artist's sake, if it's a South African artist, let's say, you want them to have a good South African gallery, and you want them ideally to have a good international gallery, or two, depending, because that increases their profile. And so a couple of our artists work with other galleries, and they are generally, or based in Europe or America. And so it's not exclusive.
Okay.
I mean, you start getting into the details where you can, call yourself the primary gallery and all of that, but I won't get into that now.
The whole primary market, secondary market. Now I hear a lot of, well, I know auction houses are also now starting to do private sales. And so it seems like everything is sort of blurring as well. And everything's becoming a hybrid of everything. But I mean, that's a different conversation. That's a whole other conversation. Basel. So I'm very excited about who you're taking to Basel, because you do have quite a number of amazing artists. You were part of the careers of Tringa as well.
Yeah.
Kimang, obviously, I saw here. Who are you taking? Do you take everyone?
No, I don't take everyone. I mean, we do take several artists. I'll read their names. I have to read. I don't want to forget one of them. I get into trouble. I mean, we've recently taken on a new artist called, and she's exhibiting in the front.
I just saw, yes.
Her name's Annabelle Agbergado. So we'll be taking some small paintings by her. Dineo Bopapi, Jared Ginsberg,
Yes, no, Jared.
Donna Kukama, Sabelo Angeni, Christian Mukwazi, Zimbabwean artist, Asamachle, Gregory Olympia, who's a Beninese French artist,
Yes.
Zoe Paul, Gerda Skierpers, and Kimang. So we've got often just one work from each of them.
And then, I mean, just out of
And you
interest,
see, when we do the booth, we wouldn't hang probably all of those artists at once.
I was about to say, how often do you have to replenish? I mean,
More the better. If you're selling, then you got to rehang, and
rehang.
But you've also got to balance that with, you don't want to take too much, because the worst thing is after an art fair is, you've paid a fortune to be there, to ship the work there, and now you've got to ship work back.
Yes.
Air freight. And as soon as someone an art handler in Switzerland touches a crate, it's already like 10,000 Rand. Anyway, so you want to take more than what your initial hang will be, so you can rehang. And also just, we do at Blank, we've got a style of hanging in quite a minimal way. Yes. We like to give the artworks a lot of space. So, I mean, and in Basel, every day is kind of important. I guess the first 2 days are the most important.
Yes.
But even on the Friday and the weekend or the Saturday, you've got people coming and still buying. It's quite a consistent fair like that, So we would like to just show, we will show all of those artists at one stage or another over the week. And then we've also actually got one of our artists, Donna Kukama, who's doing a project at a space called SALTS, SALTS.
I'll check that out.
And
In Basel.
yeah, she's there now. It's a kind of residency, which it's a well-known Basel non-profit space. In fact, one of the curators is Samuel Leuenberger, who curated the parkour for you. Not this last year, but before, he was a curator of parkour, and that he's a really good curator. So he runs that space. So that's quite nice to have that tangential project,
I think that's the other thing about Basel, is there's so much happening at the same time and everyone's in town. So I go for the first 2-3 days. I think my first Art Basel, I went for 5 days. I can only handle feeling like the poorest person in the world for 2 days. I've been very fortunate in the sense that I sit upstairs in the VIP section, and we have the champagne breakfast when it opens, and it's amazing. The energy is exhilarating. It's always exciting to see a couple of people that you know. And as you go consistently, you do recognize quite a couple of familiar faces. But yeah,
I really like Basel, as opposed to like a fair in New York or London or any big city, Basel's a small city. And so you constantly, it's a bit like the preview of Venice, where you're just constantly bumping into people.
Yes.
In a big city, people leave the fair at 8 p.m. and boom, that's it. They disappear into, the night. And in Basel, you go around the corner, and you bump into someone on the pavement or at a restaurant or whatever. So I really like the atmosphere that builds up around Basel, because it's, if you have an art fair in London, for example, London doesn't care. You know what I mean, really? But Basel, it's really an important thing also for the people of Basel, in that everyone knows it and has grown up with it. And a lot of them work there doing side hustles and earning some cash during the fair. So,
Amazing.
because the energy is really nice. It's summer, you can swim in the river.
Have you done that with a floating bag and you go down in the...
No, I mean, I haven't really used a floating bag. I've just swum down the river.
It's
or floated down.
Floated down the river. I must say, for me, again, it's got such a sense of community. I do try to, just to be open. But I mean, I had no idea how busy the first couple of days are, and literally, it's the epicenter of the art world for those days. Yeah. So the artists that you're taking through. Do you ever take any artists along? I mean, it's interesting.
It's not so much take them along. Some of them might want to come, So, to answer your question, yes. I mean, in the early days, we used to do a lot in establishing the program and promoting the artists. We used to do a lot of solo presentations. So we had a solo presentation by Ekshan or Jared or whoever. And then if we did that, often the artists would come.
I read an amazing book called 7 Days in the Art World. It was in preparation for actually entering the art world. And they speak about the Venice Biennale, then they speak about Art Basel, they speak about sort of different aspects of the art world. And there was an art critic that they mentioned who said that an artist shouldn't go to an art fair.
I know.
Do you know the quote?
Yes.
They say artists, who was it? John Baldessari. John Baldessari said, an artist going to an art fair is like watching your parents having sex. You know it's happening, but you don't want to see it. So to me, it's also interesting to see the artists, especially in Cape Town, I suppose, because the artists can go to a Cape Town art fair, so they are there. So it's interesting to watch them. I mean, I've had conversations sometimes with who I thought was the curator, and I'm like, I'm sure the artist intended this, and then they're like, I am the artist. But yeah, I mean, so do you think artists should go to art fairs?
It depends on the artist. I do think, I think generally it's good for an artist to see what we get up to. We're like putting pressure on them to finish work on time because we need to photograph it, measure it, crates made and all of this, and then it disappears from their studio, and we show it over an art fair, which is essentially a week, and then it, if you're lucky, you sell it. And so they, and I think it's quite nice for them to just see what these international art fairs are about, to see what their work is doing in the context of where their work is being shown. And I think just about every artist that we work with has been to at least one international art fair. I mean, some people like Ekshan so good at it, he loves talking to people at the fair, and he wins them over. And, some people are a lot more shy or not that good with words. So for each artist, it's different, but it's certainly a valuable experience to check out an international fair. Yeah.
Jonathan, thank you so much. I mean, I look forward to seeing you again in Basel. It's always such a treat.
Leave next week. I'll see you there.
I will see you there.